Well, Gordon, again, we're talking about Sons of the Father, and you've written a number of books, and of course this is the second major book released in 1995, and of course it's gone right around the whole world. And
Yes.
there's a chapter in here, and it's all about making a living, making a life. It's dealing with a man at work, and we often find our identity in our work, don't we?
Yeah.
Just to talk about that for a second.
We certainly do. Well, in fact, in Western culture at least, even surnames are often jobs, like carpenter, miller, baker, Fleischmann. In German means flesh means butcher. I asked a friend of mine one time, his name was Woolcott. I said, where's that come from? He said, it means wool cutter. So and we often have son of, meaning of a trade or something like that. So who you are, your name literally, is what you do in Western culture. So many surnames are actually job titles like that. So what that communicates is that, if you're not working, you don't exist.
Which is a very sad comment, isn't it? It's a very sad comment, but I know in our own town of Wollongong, where I live, in the mid-'80s, there was a massive retrenchment of the steelworks, and I remember hearing this story of this man who'd worked 25 years at the steelworks, every day, faithfully going to work, putting his effort in. And the final day, he walked out of the steelworks. No one shook his hand. No one said thank you. And in fact, he was actually put off, and it was devastating for him because he identified so much with his work.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you pull a work away. Oftentimes when men, they're at the end of their life, they're retiring, and within a year they drop dead, which is very, very sad.
I remember when I left, I was pastoring a church in Los Angeles, and I really felt called to write books full time and minister in other ways. I remember when I left that, I had my calendar filled with lunch appointments and meetings and all kinds of stuff, and I turned a page and it was utterly blank. And it was like that blankness just reached out and seized me and said, you don't exist, there's nothing to you anymore. I mean, it was the most frightening feeling I can almost hardly remember. And for several weeks after that, I was just in a funk and a depression, like, who am I? Where am I? What do I don't have the job to get up for, because writing, you set your own schedule. Nobody's sitting there telling me when I have to get up. I mean, it was like a whole radical shift for my life. And I knew I had a calling, and I knew I had work to do, but it wasn't like somebody telling me when and how to do it. So it was very frightening for me. And I can see how I would never denigrate in any way a man who works hard at his job, because that's part of being a responsible man. It really is. But somehow what happens is, if a man gets so caught up on that as identity, then when he comes home, if he comes home, for goodness sakes, because you find many times the guys will stop off at the bar or go off and do this or work overtime. And when I talk to these men, basically the guys who are working all the time, at work the other mates are saying, oh, he's a hard-working guy, but at home that's not the message you get from the wife or the kids. He said, why isn't he home with us? Why is he withdrawing from us? Well, because he feels inadequate to be a husband, to be a father, and that feels shameful. So it's better off to be with the mates having a couple down at the bar, or being off working where the guys say you're such a great guy.
Yeah, he's appreciating his wanted.
That's right. And then, I mean, then you do these funerals as a pastor. You see these funerals, these guys in their 50s and 60s, after they retire and stuff like that, and everybody's praising the shop steward gets up, what a great worker he was, or the chief executive, he was at the office every day, it's like, and then over the punch bowl, the young son pulls me aside in his 20s, say, I love my dad, he worked hard often, but he wasn't there for me. Well, he was at the work, but they're all praising him for being on the job. He wasn't at my ball game. So how do I deal with that? And I think, a lot of times you hear people say, when a man's on his deathbed, his regrets are rarely that he didn't sell another contract, or his regrets are he didn't spend more time with his family. And that's but why not? Because we feel so inadequate, and that feels shameful.
Dr. Bruce Robinson, who's one of Australia's best-selling fathered authors, he wrote a book called Fathering from the Fast Lane in 2001. It was a bestseller. And I asked him one day, I said, why did you write that book? He's a busy doctor, he's a professor of medicine in Perth, in a very well-known university. And he said, Warwick, in my job I was a lung specialist, and I thought I'd be there for the last days of a man's life. And he never said to me, those men never said to him, gee, I wish I'd spent more time at the office when they were on their deathbed. They'd always said, I wish I'd spent more time with my children. So,
Yeah.
Gordon, you're absolutely right.
I think the great grief I have now at 65 years old is what my father missed. I mean, I would grieve for myself originally as I was working through my pain and stuff like that, but now I realize what he missed, that just because of his own fears and his own father and his grandfather that cut him off from me and cut him off from his father. And it's very sad, and and jobs can be a great way to hide, quite frankly. And
there's another thing about jobs, Gordon, is that, you know, sometimes a woman, the wife says, I want more money, I want more things, and I want to have my, you know, the latest dress, and I want to have, you know, a new lounge suite and this. And so the husband actually then goes and does the extra overtime and works the Saturday and sometimes maybe the Sunday, and then he comes home after doing that for 3-4 years and his wife's left. And a lot of men have got to step back and understand that a lot of times the women aren't really articulating, their wife isn't really articulating what she really wants.
That's right. That's
you want to comment on that?
Yeah, you got to listen to her heart, not to her words sometimes like that. Yeah. Yes, obviously. And I remember once a couple came to me, and they were on the verge of divorce, and the woman got to the office a little early. I said, "Where's your husband?" She said, "Well, he's just finishing up a job. He's a high-end furniture refinishing guy." I stopped just to remind him at the office. "Oh, you did?" "Yeah." And she happened to mention, "Yeah, he was working on this piece of cabinetry." He said, "It was really beautiful." "Did you tell him that?" "Yes, as a matter of fact, I did." "How did he respond?" "Actually, you know, he was very nice. In fact, he seemed very, very good and happy about that." And I said, "Yes, sister, you know, a man gives out of he works at something, puts himself into it, and if you can bless that.
Encourage him with your words.
Encourage and say you've done a good job. You're speaking to his manhood now, the core of his man. You've done something well and done it good."
So you actually got a bit of marriage counselling even before he came, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I know, you know, in Christian scripture it says, "Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands." There's a little different twist on that like that. And when Mary says, "I love you," that's nice. I like that. But if she says, "I really respect you a lot," go, whoa, I mean, I'm on the cloud. And I respect her for something. She receives that and said, "I love you so much." Oh, you can just see her heart open up. There's a difference there, you know?
Difference. Our egos as men, we're very fragile. That's not often understood by a lot of people. But I think the women who know their husbands know that's the truth. And we actually do need a woman to say, "Honey, I'm proud of you."
Well, women don't know their power. They think their power is like a man's power to force somebody or something. They don't know the power in a woman to bless her husband. Just to say...
That word bless, can you just explain that to me?
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes we Christians get off on our own language sometimes, don't we? To bless, that's amazing. I asked my dad to bless his grandson, my son, when the boy was 13. I took him across the U.S. He says, "What does that mean to bless the son?" I said, "Well, Dad, I'd like you to tell him the good things that you want for him and anything good you see in him that you like." And guys will come to me and they'll say, "Oh, you know, I get a little, how's the loving department?" "Well, not very good. My wife and me were," and I said, "Well, have you ever told your wife what you like about her? Does she ever tell you what she likes about you?" And he says, "No, of course." I said, "You know, tell the man what you like about him." And a lot of the things, I'm speaking to the ladies right now, a lot of things that you're frustrated with about him, you might just find begin to disappear if you take little. And I know we men are not perfect. I can hear the women scream, "But you don't know it." I don't. But all I'm speaking as a man here, what blesses me is what encourages me as a man and makes me want to be close to my wife, Mary.
Now, I hope you're listening, ladies, to that, because that's a real bit of brilliant advice from Gordon. It's all about encouraging your man and encouraging him too. And of course, we're trying to get the guys to do the same for you.
Thank you.
Gordon, it's been great to talk to you. We really appreciate your time, and you're going really, really well. And again, thank you.
My pleasure.